All right, we're going to save this person on Reddit $5 to $6 million in taxes over their lifetime, and we're going to do it right now. So this Redditor on Fatfire asks how to optimize Roth conversions in a multi-million-dollar tax-deferred retirement account, and as they explain, they have over $8 million in investments. They retired in their early 50s, and they want to do Roth conversions, but just not seeing much of a benefit. Well, there is a benefit. It's $5 to $6 million. So as I go through this post, let's pull out the important parts. They're in their early 50s, and I'm going to say 53. They're single. I'm going to assume no kids, but who knows? Their only income moving forward will be $70,000 in dividends yearly from a taxable $5.1 million brokerage index fund account. They have $2.9 million in a pre-tax 401k with a negligible amount in a Roth, and it's that account that they're worried about growing to a point where required minimum distributions will be out of control. In fact, they are totally right. Now, this is assuming 8% growth. $691,000 at age 75, and by your mid 80s you're at $1.5 million a year. So yes, it is important to be proactive. Now, this is really interesting and unique. They have $2.2 million in trading losses from 2008, and they're going to continue to carry that forward and utilize it when they liquidate their taxable brokerage account to offset capital gains. So far, I can tell, this is a really smart person, probably a doctor based on their username, and they talk about being in the top bracket during their working years, so it's not like they inherited most of this. They've done their own math, but they do have one thing that's kind of wrong, or maybe I'm misunderstanding, but they say, given my yearly dividend income, my tax bracket will be 12%. Well, if dividend income is truly your only income, then you aren't going to use the ordinary income tax brackets. This is a common misconception on how tax brackets work, and capital gains and qualified dividends are taxed at a completely separate rate with completely separate tables and brackets. So let's walk through an example really quick. If we just assume that your only income is $70,000 in qualified dividends, none of that goes into the ordinary income tax brackets. So if this person wanted to just do nothing for the next 20 years, then they'd have a very low effective tax rate for a very long time, 2.5%. But I don't think that's a good idea, and we'll show you why. If I do a $240,000 conversion, now you see that money being taxed at these different rates. So now when you add up your two different types of tax, your ordinary income tax of $51,000 plus the qualified dividend tax at $10,500, you're $61,700 for an overall effective tax rate of 19.9%. That's still better than the 35 or 37% that this person was at the marginal bracket where they were saving money, putting it in at a lower rate. Now, this doesn't really matter. Looking backwards doesn't really do us any good. So looking forward, looking at effective tax rate, not marginal tax bracket, we can see that very low for a while, gets a little bit higher, then gets really high once required distributions kick in. We're up at 26% federal tax rate. Now, if we were to do Roth conversions, we're going to smooth this out a little bit because we're also going to give up these low tax years, and then we're going to see if that actually makes sense. If I do Roth conversions up to 24%, see how we smooth out that effective tax rate. So now we're at that 18.8%, almost 20%, and then we stay at about 23% for a long time. Now this isn't quite accurate because I wouldn't recommend that they get rid of their entire traditional IRA, but that's what's happening. That's why it drops off a cliff here. Now that Roth conversion strategy would be pretty intense. That's converting $200,000 a year and gets a little bit higher. So you just have to evaluate it year after year, and we can see it's a pretty big deal when it comes to required minimum distributions. Required minimum distributions would be $20 million if this person doesn't do conversions. If they do conversions, very low required minimum distributions, probably lower than I would even recommend. Federal tax paid, here you go, $0.7 million less in federal taxes paid. Now to be fair, big bulk of the taxes when you don't do conversions is paid from 75 to 90. So that is something that this person should keep in mind. But still, $5 to $6 million in taxes is hard to ignore, but something I'd want to dig into if I was this person. What is the age that I break even on taxes by doing this Roth conversion strategy. I'm not going to do that right here because it's a lot more work, but that's something that I would definitely want to know. I do want to say I think this person did things correctly by putting the money in a traditional 401k to save the tax at the 35 and 37% rate. I mean, they're still at 23% effective rate. They're still saving a pretty big spread there. So they did well. Let's just remember that there's so many assumptions baked in here. I literally just have a 100% equity index portfolio where I tried to match the $70,000 dividend. I plugged in $3,000 in Social Security at age 70, totally made up spending, guessed on their age, assumed they lived in a state with no income tax. I did have the capital loss carryover, but honestly, without knowing the cost basis of the taxable account, it's just a guess on how that'll be used up. So this is just for fun and to illustrate a point. It's not advice, but there are some questions that would change this analysis a lot, like do they give to charity or have plans to? And if so, that opens up quite a few more opportunities. It definitely means you wouldn't want to convert everything because of qualified charitable distributions after age 70 and a half. Even without that, though, you could pair bigger Roth conversions with contributing to a donor-advised fund. You could, after the capital loss carry forward is gone, you could even contribute appreciated stock to the donor advised fund to avoid the capital gains, plus get the tax benefit of contributing to a charity. There's so many factors here that weren't discussed, including health insurance premiums and how that might factor in. So if you want to see how premium tax credits complicate the analysis even further, check out a video I have on that. And until next time.